guys, thanks for joining me for this episode of the Morse Code Podcast. I sat down today with my pal Travis Thomas, leadership coach for the U.S. men's national soccer team when they went to the World Cup in 2022, published author 2 times over, native of Flint, Michigan, resident of St. Louis, Missouri. I think you're going to really like my interview with Travis Thomas. So, Travis Thomas.
Yes,
improviser, mindset coach, author, and my favorite thing about you, prolific user of exclamation points in text messages.
A lot of them, a lot of exclamation, a lot of smiles.
You got to inject some personality.
Yeah. I mean, I heart, for those of you out there, I heart a lot of messages. I barely use the thumbs up. Thumbs up to me feels so like, yeah, I got it. Yep, I got it. Heart's like, I got it. I feel you. I got it. Yeah. Yeah. I will see you at the coffee shop. Heart.
Not only will I, but I'm excited.
I'm excited about it. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you on. Thanks for joining this. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was thinking about it. We've known each other for about 30 years, but we really only passed briefly. We were at the same school my junior year, your sophomore year, I think.
Yes. Yep.
And I was just there for a year. And then when I moved back to St. Louis and then you moved back to St. Louis, I was like, oh, wow, Travis Thomas is doing cool stuff, but he doesn't know who I am.
I have always known.
I love the fact that your story started in sort of a creative performing space, and then you took that into another space. And I feel like that is a real nice point of differentiation for you. There's a lot of people out there who purport to doing what you do or who are working in the same space. And frankly, if I can be totally blunt, I do feel like it the coaching space and the mindset space, and it's sort of blurred into like influencers and stuff.
Sure.
It feels like it can attract a lot of people who are maybe lightweights. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate, some things that I know about you on a personal level. I know that you bring a spiritual perspective to this work, and then you also bring the improv perspective, which I think is really relevant and interesting. So that's what I like about Travis Thomas professionally. And if you don't mind just sort of talking about like how you started up in improv and then how that led you into the work you're doing now. And you can talk about, Georgia and USMNT and
I'll connect some of those dots. They seem a lot easier to connect in reverse as life tends to do that. I can look back and go, of course, all those dots connected perfectly, just the way I planned them. And I'm from Flint, Michigan. I always tell people I'm from Flint with pride. Got a lot of pride coming from the FLINT. And I worked for my dad's business for about 2 or 3 years, which is a hamburger business, and really loved the cultural side of the business. Especially getting to know the employees and wanting to do more for an employee base that, quite honestly, when usually when you kind of make fun of someone, you're like, oh, what are you going to turn it? You're going to live your life as a burger flipper, or work at McDonald's, right? This is this big burn, like that's And I was like, oh, those are good people. Like those are really, really good people. Like, we probably shouldn't be insulting people that. That's what they do. And so I've always had a special place in my heart for an industry that is really hard, does not pay well. So that had a big imprint on my growing up and being part of a family business. And, sports were a big part of my life, but, my wife and I, we got married, we moved to St. Louis for about 10 months, tried some things. She worked on a political campaign. I worked in my brother-in-law's sports facility. It wasn't a good fit for us. We moved to Boston. We're working for the church in Boston, and she's working for the publisher's wing. I'm working for a website, and we're just kind of like 2 young people trying to see what our professional lives look like and having a lot of fun in a great city. And I've always loved comedy growing up, and tried a little bit of stand-up in college. And we went to an improvisational theater. Probably, I think it was the first weekend we were in town, and the place had just opened. And I grew up going to Second City shows as a kid, and was completely enamored with the talent and the ability to be able to do that, to do improvisation and to make up stories and tell collaborative stories on the spot without any preparation. And for it to be just, it felt like magic to me. And so we saw the show. They were amazing. The main stage cast was amazing. And my just curiosity of like, I would love to know how to do that. Not thinking I could do it like they do, but I want to know, like, they have classes. So why don't I just take a class? Right. So I took that level 1 class, and I was hooked, like right away, like light bulbs were going off. Because like you mentioned, right. I grew up with a very spiritual upbringing. I grew up playing sports. So I'm kind of wired that way. I'm married, so relationship, and I'm working in a corporate environment. So all these sort of, concentric circles, I felt like we're being overlapped with these principles of improvisation. And I'm like, wow, this has a ton of relevance off the stage. But I was just having a good time. And so I took level 1. Level 1 turned into level 6 a year and a half later. And I'm graduating from the training center and being encouraged by the theater. Hey, we're auditioning for a touring company. You should audition. It'll be a good experience. I auditioned not thinking that I would make the cast. I made the cast. And now all of a sudden, for the next 2 years, I'm kind of working my way up the ladder. I'm teaching in the training center. I'm doing corporate training gigs. I'm performing, at least once a week in the theater. And then I work my way up to the main stage cast. And I'm like, I'm actually one of the cool kids. I'm one of the people that I never thought I would be able to get to. And it was amazing. It was just, it was like this glorified hobby where I got to have like a real job during the day. And I got to do entertainment and comedy and perform in front of sold out audiences, 3 or 4 nights a week. And it was a blast.
Were you always comfortable on stage and a comfortable performer, or did that take some doing?
I think maybe comfortable, whether I was comfortable or not, I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed, I was a kid that enjoyed giving speeches in class. Uh-huh. Like I'd raise my hand. Who wants to read? Like I'd raise my hand, so there was that performer bug in me, I think. And so I loved sort of being in front of people, whether that's as a speaker or as a performer. And so not that I was necessarily good at it. I was so nervous. It still made me nervous, but I enjoyed the opportunity. So it definitely tracked for me to give this improvisation thing a shot. And so, so then after doing that for a while, we had our first child, and we wanted to get to warm weather, and we moved down to Jupiter, Florida, and we did the reverse retirement plan. We moved to Florida in our late 20s. And I found 2 gentlemen down there, one who was a former New York City actor who was a Blue Man and Blue Man group, and the other one was a local actor who was teaching at the one guy's acting school, his theater. And so I befriended the 2 of them. I started doing some teaching, improv teaching in his school, and he had his own theater. I was like, hey, would you ever want to do an improv, group? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. So the 3 of us started a group back in 2004, and we just celebrated our 20th year together, the 3 of us, back in November of 2024. We still perform a couple of times, at least when we can. And that's just been a fun, relationship. And the fact those guys are still my friends, and we're still performing. But it was really kind of like those mid 2000s, Eric, when I was like, this isn't a career, especially down in South Florida. Like, this isn't a career, but so what do I really want to do? And I knew I wanted to kind of still work with people and work with teams and work with organizations and be a coach, if you will. And what kind of coach, I'm not sure. So maybe I'll be a life coach. So I got trained for the next two years or so. I did a deep dive into personal development, did a lot of development, became an assistant coach in some programs, And I thought, oh, maybe I'll do the life coaching, maybe I'll do the executive coaching. Was doing a handful of work, but that was the start of the path that I really feel like I'm on now, which was I'm doing everything now that I wanted to do 20 years ago, not knowing how long and how difficult that path is.
Funny how that works.
Thank goodness, because hey, if you knew what you signed up for, would you do it? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm glad I didn't know, because I just stayed on the path. We traveled around the country in our minivan trying to figure out where to go next. We were sort of nomads in a minivan with our 3 young kids, and we ended up back in Florida. And then I got a job on the other side of Florida at IMG Sports Academy, which is like some of the best athletes in the world come and live there and go to school and train there. And now I'm a leadership coach, being exposed and working with amazing athletes and just getting reps on my feet every day, teaching and performing. And right, it was a whole lot of education, entertainment to keep kids' attention, and did that for a few years and worked with some really, really cool organizations and cool sports teams, and left in 2015 to do my own thing. I wanted to focus on leadership, mindset, and culture, and started my own organization called Live Yes And. Yes And is the basis of improvisation. And, to your kind words at the beginning, I think the thing that my wife and I have done really, really authentically, our whole lives or our whole marriage together, is that we've been sort of authentic to who we are, purposeful to how we live. And we've really tried to live from the yes and mantra of improvisation, which is what all of improv is based on. It's just that acceptance is the yes, and the and is how do you respond and respond collaboratively. And so when you add purpose to it, how would I respond if I were on purpose? Yes. And what's my purposeful response? And I'm like, well, okay, so that's something that I think individuals, businesses, and teams could probably use. And so because of my IMG days, I had lots of connections in college and pro sports. So I was being brought in to consult and do workshops with professional sports teams, a lot of Major League Baseball teams, college sports teams, University of Georgia football, for a number of years. And then my connection there, who was one of the best mindset coaches in the world, his name was Trevor Moad. We lost him a few years ago to cancer. But he was one of the best mindset coaches in the world. And he started his own organization called Limitless Minds with Russell Wilson, the quarterback, and 2 other gentlemen as the founders. And they were using me as they were taking the best of sports mental conditioning into the corporate space. And so I've been one of their head coaches now, probably since 2017, 2018, when the organization started. They keep me really, really busy, but also kind of happening at the same time was I was just still growing my own message, my own brand. And I wrote my first book in 2016, 3 words for getting unstuck, Live Yes And. And towards the end of 2019, I had sent my book as a cold copy to the head coach of the U.S. men's national soccer team, Greg Berhalter. Somehow he got it, somehow he read it, and somehow he liked it. And he reached out, and we met in a Starbucks in December of 2019. And 2 weeks later, I was in my first U.S. men's soccer team, national team camp. Wow. And my 6-month trial with the team turned into 3 years, culminating in, being in Qatar for the 2022 World Cup as a member of that staff. And just, having a pinch me crazy dream come true experience of being on the staff of the sport and the team that I love. And and so I always kind of have my feet in 2 worlds. I'm in the corporate space doing the corporate speaking, the keynotes and the workshops and consulting, and then having a foot in the sports world is working with teams, working with athletes. I work with a lot of athletes one-on-one from a mental skills standpoint. And they both kind of feed each other. I wrote my second book, came out in December, called Confidence is Overrated. And so I'm having a lot of fun kind of talking about that message and sharing that message. And both books are very kind of autobiographical because I'm kind of telling my story while hopefully making some points about the message of the book and sharing stories that I've sort of experienced and have witnessed and been a part of over these last 20 years or so. And so that brings me to where we are today, Eric.
Yeah,
you wanted the long version. All right, that was a long version.
I tend to dig my own hole. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between working with these elite athletes and corporate teams. I'm particularly interested in, as someone who spent a lot of time trying to be an athlete and being an athlete, I remember learning that there's something that separates these elite athletes from everyone else, and it's not necessarily that they're freak athletes, although many of them are physically. And so, your work as a leadership coach gets into that mindset. And is that true? Like, can you talk a little bit about what separates either them from corporate or just them from us?
I would say, as far as the tools and the principles that go into being a high performer in either industry are the same. When you think about, like, if we just take professional athletes and look at the reality, what percentage of people in the world achieve the status of professional athletes? It's what, less than 1%, right? It's 0.0, point whatever percentage, right? And so you're working with a population of people that not only are they outliers professionally, they've committed, they've gone all in on the thing that they love. And how many people really do that? How many people go all in on the thing on the thing that they love with no guarantee of success? Because there's never any guarantee of success. So there's a tremendous amount of commitment and vulnerability. Huge commitment, huge vulnerability. Now, if you were to talk to most pro athletes, I don't think they would call themselves vulnerable, because it's just what they've always done, right? But I've said to groups before, imagine having your worst professional work day. Oh yeah, and 20 million people watched it.
Yeah.
That's what a professional athlete is putting out there every time they step on the field or the diamond or the gym floor, whatever it is. There's the opportunity that they're going to be memed forever. And so there is this tremendous vulnerability that goes into that level of commitment, choosing that as your career. And again, it's like, if it's you don't know any better, because that's what you've always done. But when you think about, like, well, what is the difference between someone who's in that space compared to someone who's maybe just in the corporate space? There's definitely a different level of pressure, and there's a different level of there's a normalization of pressure, which is every day is pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're wired. And again, I don't believe in sort of the whole fixed mindset of oh, you're wired to be great or wired to be resilient, but their world requires so much resilience. And if you live in an industry that requires constant resilience and you're able to survive, it probably means that you're resilient because you've had to be.
Yeah.
And so to be able, but again, like with a lot of high performers, we talk about there's 4 levels of thinking. This is for everybody. 4 levels of thinking. There's unconscious incompetence, which is I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know that I don't know it. Right? Unfortunately, we've got a lot of that in politics right now. We've got unconscious. We've got unconscious incompetence. We've got conscious incompetence, which is, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, and I know it. Hey, Eric, help me with this. Right? We don't have enough of that in politics, right? We've got unconscious competence. And this is where actually I think most high-level athletes and high-level performers are. They are really, really, really good at this thing that they do. But if you were to ask them to explain why, they go, I don't know. I work hard. I work hard. I really love the game, or I love playing the instrument. All right. Well, that doesn't explain why you're good at it. And so that the fourth level of thinking is conscious competence, which is, okay, like I'm really good at this thing. And here's why I'm really good at this thing. Because this is how I prepare. This is how I recover. And while I'm actually doing the thing, here's what I'm focused on. Here's the behaviors that it's required of me to do that thing really well. And so now that I know what it takes to do that, now I can build habits and routines around that process so that I can repeat it over and over and over again. But again, most, I would say most people, I mean, whether you're a high performer or not, most of us have unconscious competence. And so, like my job is to help, it's kind of funny, my job is to help high-level performers go from unconscious competence to conscious competence so they can understand it, and then have the actual behavior of it become unconscious again. So that we're no longer thinking about it.
When you and I were hanging out the other day, I brought up the concept of flow state, which I think brings improv back into it.
Yes.
And that feels very much like an unconscious competence kind of thing where it's just flowing through you, right?
Yeah. And for improvisation, it's a great example of when you're learning a skill. The great thing about actively learning a skill is that you're consciously learning the tools and the rules and the things in order to do the skill. So there's a lot of conscious competence in the teaching of it. And so I'm learning yes and, I'm learning don't ask questions, I'm learning listen and then make my partner look brilliant, and how to make physical choices and how to use object work, and how you're learning the hows of all this stuff. But in the process of learning something, you're thinking a lot. So it's a very conscious, like flow state is when actually that front part of the brain of the step-by-step thinking is actually turned off because it's now naturally unconscious. Any skill, but improvisation is such a great one because it is something that requires total commitment to the present moment. There is no, you and I are dependent on one another. I can't control what you're going to do. I don't know what you're going to do, and I don't know what you're thinking. And so I have to stay fully engaged on you and in the present moment in order for this to be successful. So I've got to be able to trust myself, and not get stuck in my head of trying to pre-plan where I think it's going to go in order for me to feel safe.
Something that I found kind of notable a few minutes ago when you were talking about athletes and the pressure that they're under with the crowd size and everything else. And I think that most people might say, well, the way an athlete performs under that amount of pressure is confidence. And the word you used was resilience. Can you talk a little bit about, I'm teeing you up here, you can tell. Can you talk a little bit about
where are you going with this?
why might confidence be overrated, would you say?
Did you say confidence might be overrated? That's amazing.
Why resilience over confidence?
Why resilience over confidence? Because resilience is having the ability to rebound to whatever is happening. Confidence is the feeling. I'm not even going to call it a belief, right? I'm going to call it a feeling. Confidence is the feeling that things are going to go well. And And resilience is, I don't know how well things are going to go, but I know I'm going to bounce back and respond to it. So when I think about resilience, and again, the book is Confidence is Overrated. So I'm a proponent of, we put way too much emphasis on trying to build confidence, and zero to no, a very little to zero emphasis on what if we just trained or helped people be more courageous, i.e. resilient. And so if we shifted to courage, because if we focus on confidence, we all know, all of us listening to this knows what confidence feels like. Confidence is a feeling. We know what confidence feels like. And most of us cannot control whether we're going to feel confident or not. Now, there's all these different things I can do to hopefully feel confident. I can put a lot of hard work in. I can do all the preparation. I can do everything. I can make sure that I'm fully prepared. And yet, when it comes time to perform, it doesn't guarantee I'm going to feel confident. So if I believe that I need to feel confident in order to perform at a high level, I now probably don't think that I can perform as well as I would like to, because I don't feel confident. It's a feeling. Mm-hmm. What does actually determine if I'm going to do well, perform well, whether that's taking the ACT or given a presentation at work, or going out and getting in the batter's box and hitting 100 mile an hour fast, whatever the performance is, what is going to determine whether I do it well or not? Well, that's going to be determined by what actions and behaviors I actually take. And so if I say, okay, so if behaviors lead to outcomes and results, should I then, as the performer, be focused on what I need to do, or should I be focused on how I feel? Feelings don't predict performance. Behaviors do. And so if I am a new manager or VP and I have to give up and I have to stand up in front of the entire organization and go through my PowerPoint presentation of how we are going to turn this company around, and I'm very nervous going into that. I don't consider myself a public speaker. So no matter how much I try to fake it and how many times I go over my slides, I don't feel confident but if I say, okay, I've rehearsed this presentation so many times, I know the slides, and when I go out there, I'm going to make sure that I take my time with the slides. I'm going to make sure that I really work the stage and move around and go back and forth, try to make eye contact with a few people. And I'm going to pause and allow people to ask me questions. All right. What am I focused on? I'm going to focus on, going slowly through my slides, which I know really well. I'm going to focus on moving around the stage to create engagement. I'm going to focus on getting good questions. What am I focused on? I'm focusing on the behaviors of a great presentation. And if you were to ask me, well, how do you feel? Oh, I'm scared to death. But if I focus on the behaviors, how I feel becomes less important, because my feelings don't determine the outcome. My behaviors do. Mm-hmm. And so for any of you sports fans out there, like Mikaela Shiffrin is one of the best downhill skiers in the world. And when she was asked on a podcast, hey, on a scale, what's for a typical competition, how much, I think he said belief, but it's like, again, we can talk about, but belief and confidence, we often use them interchangeably. I don't think they're the same thing. And I'll tell you why. But he asked her, how much self-belief do you have? And she's like, 20%.
Wow.
20. She's the best in the world at what she does. And she goes, might be an unpopular opinion, but, confidence, I'm never really a confident person. Okay. So why is confidence so important? So what does she do instead? She knows how to train. She knows how to prepare. She knows how to get to the top of the mountain. She knows what she needs to focus on. And she has the courage to go and to go for it. She's 20% of confidence. Now, if we were to take those two words, Eric, confidence and belief, and separate them, go, what's the difference between the two? I would say, again, confidence is a feeling. And again, I can do certain things that will probably make me feel more confident, but it doesn't guarantee it. And I say, well, what is belief? What is belief? Well, belief, can I have high belief and low confidence? Absolutely. And when I work with pro athletes all the time, and they're like, can you help me with my confidence? I say, all right. I said, hey, have you been doing all the work that's been required of you? And they're like, absolutely. I was like, all right. Have you demonstrated the ability to perform at a high level before? They're like, I've been doing it all my life. I was like, all right. If the coach comes to you tomorrow and says, I need you to change this part of, I need you to play here, I need you to change this, do you believe that you have the ability and the skill set to do that? They're like, 100%. I was like, so you believe in yourself? Absolutely. And so I say to them, so what does confidence have to do with it? Confidence is just the feeling. Belief is based on what? Belief is based on evidence. I've got evidence that I've got the goods. Now, once I've got the belief, now just have courage. Courage is I'm willing to go out there and commit and go for it. Focus on the right things, commit to the action, be courageous. Well, I can't be confident and courageous at the same time. So what would you rather be? Would you rather be confident or courageous? Courage without fear isn't courage, it's comfort. So do I want my kids, do I want the teams that I work with, do I want them to be courageous or do I want them to be confident? I want them to be courageous because we can actually control that, but we can't control confidence. I love to say it's being in radical collaboration with reality instead of being in denial of it, right? So anytime we're stuck in life, it's because we're denying what is happening. And as long as we just kind of ignore something, it doesn't go away, it just gets bigger. And then if you want to progress, you got to say, yes, this is happening. And what can I do about it? It's not about solving it in one action, but it's solving it by a series of continuous yes and neutral actions, one yes and at a time. And so that's what we're all doing in life every single day.
Yeah.
Right? We don't control any of it. We don't control 100% of what happens to us. And we control 100% of how we respond. So where does anxiety and stress come from? Anxiety and stress comes from our belief that we can control an outcome that is not matching our expectations. And so now there's stress, there's anxiety. I need this to happen, but it's not tracking that way. Or I need this job. I didn't get it. I need this relationship. It's not working out. I need this. I need this. I need this. What's the pain that I'm causing? The pain I'm causing is the attachment to the outcome that I can't control. And so if I release control and I surrender my attachment, and I still have the destination of where I want to go, but I surrender to the how to which I get there. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about that actually. And you just sort of touched on it, but I think I'll ask you to expand on it. That resonated a lot with me. The idea of surrendering attachment to the result.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are undertakings in life that are a long journey, right? And especially when you're working with athletes who, that you need to train over and over and over again and look, far down the road. And every day is not going to, no day is going to be easy. You're not going to see results right away. But you do, I would say a lot of people think that you would need to have or want to have an eye on a long-term goal.
Totally.
And I'm sure that you agree with that. So how does a long-term goal and surrendering attachment to results fit together?
Yeah. So the long-term goal is, it's the motivation, it's the North Star. It's the thing that, probably inspires us to get up out of bed and go, that's what I'm going for. I'm going for that thing right there. If it truly, Eric, if it truly is only about the destination and the hit to the ego that comes with achieving that destination, it's probably not going to be sustainable. It's not going to sustain us through the journey that it probably takes to get there. And if it truly is just about the destination, even if we do achieve it and get there, it's going to be empty, because we turn the destination into something that feels like it's the validation that we need. And then to realize I'm not validated. And some people are like, it's the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, right? I'm extrinsically, so many pro athletes are extrinsically motivated by, I want to win this title, win it again, do this, want to do this. Yeah. All those things feel good. And they're very motivating, but it's the intrinsic motivation that's going to allow you to stay in the game, to be resilient, to deal with the failure, to deal with the loss, to deal with the pain, to deal with the regiment, to deal with the discipline. That's the intrinsic motivation that has to feel that the daily process and pursuit of the intrinsic goal is actually enjoyable. When I say enjoyable, don't mistake enjoyable with fun or even, this is so enjoyable from the standpoint of, regardless of whether I achieve that final destination or not, I know that I'm growing, I'm evolving, and I'm actually pushing myself to achieve the best potential possible, even if it doesn't max out to where I want to max out. So there's the joy in the pursuit of the pursuit itself. And it's that intrinsic motivation. And so there's really, when we're intrinsically motivated, there's nothing lost. There's no loss. And so if the person finally, their career ends or they tap out or something happens and they're like, it was all for nothing because I never got to X. And it's like, you would probably get them to laugh and go, what are you talking about? Tell me everything that you learned about yourself. Tell me everything that you achieved, and tell me how you grew and evolved as a person in your pursuit of this thing. That's ultimately what it's about.
I remember you sharing during and after the World Cup how proud you were of the players after the game. And you, I think, shared an example after the game against Iran, which seemed really special. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. My job with the national team was, to be a one-on-one resource for the players and staff from a mental conditioning standpoint, to focus on team dynamics within the team, to be a resource to Greg and the coaching staff when it came to messaging, and were we really living our culture, right? We had a very specific culture that we were trying to create, and I kind of got to carry the torch for the culture. And so that's what I was always sort of thinking about was, and we had a really, really, really healthy culture within that team. And so with the Iran match, we're already playing a country that we have a big history with. So there's already a lot of built-in pressure there. And then things got ramped up going into that game because someone on the social media for the U.S. Soccer Federation, to stand in solidarity with, I believe it was one of the humanitarian organizations. We were trying to stand in solidarity with them, but someone kind of went rogue, and they posted a social media post of the Iranian flag without the emblem in the middle, which is their representation of God. Mm-hmm. And so we did something hugely disrespectful, which now just poured gasoline on the flames of this intense match, which we needed to win. We needed to win. They could tie and still go through. We needed to win. And so all of a sudden, you've got this global geopolitical pressure that's being put on the game. And so internally, all of a sudden, we felt that there was this like, this is a war. We need to treat this as a war. It's us versus them. They're our enemies. We hate them. It's this. And that never got to the players, but that was conversations that were being held in the coaches' room emotionally. And so we were able to sort of calm those waves a little bit. So I was super grateful to be in that room and a part of that process. And so we went back to, again, culture. Let's focus on who we are, what we stand for. Let's help our guys prepare for the game. This isn't about Iran. This is about us, advancing in the tournament and being our best. And so that's what we focused on. We never made it personal. We never escalated it to this is a war. And so we end up playing the game. We win the game, and so you're all on the field, and you've got Iranian players who are on the ground sobbing because during the World Cup, Iranian players were actually standing up for the people of Iran in a very dangerous way, and family members were killed for them standing up. And so they were threatened, like, do not step out of line. If you step out of line, bad things are going to happen. So this was very real for them. And so you're looking out there, and these are guys, and they're in tears, and then you look around, and our players are hugging and consoling, and just offering such compassion to these guys. And it wasn't, the Americans beat you. It was no. And when one of our players was asked after the game, he's like, of course I'm going to console him. He's a brother. And when I think about, what I believe, the United States should stand for at its best is that to me is us living the ideals of what we represent, is that, we're there to compete, we're there to win, but not, not at the sake of kindness, not at the sake of compassion. And to do it with that spirit was, in my 3 years, I was like, I don't really care what happens on the scoreboard. Like, we got it right. That was the clear, indication of, what does this team really stand for? I was like, yeah, that's who we are. That's what we stand for.
If there's one thing that listeners to this podcast should wake up tomorrow and focus on, one takeaway, whether it's from Live Yes And, or whether it's confidence is overrated or something else, shifting to neutral, what is it? What would you recommend?
Yeah, one thing for them to focus on, I think we can get really distracted to the point where we just don't make decisions that are truly in alignment with who we want to be, because we maybe don't always think that it's possible, or it's out of the norm of maybe what society says so. And so I'm a big fan of just authenticity. Uh-huh. And just people being authentic, not in the whole authenticity is like, oh, I'm just going to be an a-hole because that's authentic to me. Authentic from the standpoint of be who you are, authentically. I would say, like, unapologetically, but make decisions that sort of are in alignment with your purpose and what's most important to you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's there's so many, I think, layers of gook, if you will, that get slopped on all of us, where we make concessions for the life that we live or the choices that we make, because of that glop. I love and I think it's, did he ever say this quote? Probably not, but it makes for a great story. The quote that's often been attributed to Michelangelo when he was asked, how did you carve the statue David? And he said, in referring to the marble slab, he said, David was in there the whole time. All I had to do was remove all the clay that wasn't David.
That's great.
And so whether he said it or not, it's a great analogy.
Yeah.
That if we spent more time, I think, removing some of the obstructions that we've allowed to settle on us that might cloud our purpose, it might cloud what truly makes us happy, what truly makes us authentic. Because whether that aligns with other people's sensibilities or not is less important than, are we making decisions that are truly in alignment with who we are? And so, yeah, that's my answer.
That's a good one. And one thing that I like to do each episode, I like to ask my guests to make one thing 12% better. It's it seems kind of random. There's a reason for it. I can explain it, but it can be anything. An incremental but significant change.
Yeah. 12%. All right. I mean, I wish it were more, but my short answer would be leadership. Right. I think if we and again, in certain high power political positions, we need probably a lot more than 12%. But if we just take leadership as a whole, and again, kind of off of my last response, we are a country, a society that loves that probably more than anything, and I think our current situation kind of reflects that, is that we've decided, and I think with the we, leadership has sort of decided that there's nothing more important in our country than capitalism. There's nothing more important in our society than capitalism. And I think if we were 12% better from a leadership standpoint and realize that, you know what, you can be a capitalist, but you don't have to be a capitalist at 100, which is make money at all costs. You can be a capitalist, which is make money and also protect the environment and also spread that down to more and more people to benefit from it. And we've gone so far in the extreme that it's become our deity. I mean, I think we could still have a capitalist society and still, right, take care of our communities and maybe have billionaires pay taxes. I don't know. There's a crazy idea. And
crazy? Yeah.
We could do these. It doesn't have to be, if I'm raising my hand and going, do we really always have to? Well, you're just, you socialist. All right. How about can we just be, human?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice?
Let's just be human.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time. This was really fun. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Got a lot out of it.
Thanks for having me. I don't know if anyone else is going to get anything out of it, but but thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Where can people find Confidence is Overrated?
You can find Confidence is Overrated, as well as 3 Words for Getting Unstuck, Live Yes And, on Amazon. Eric, they're both on Amazon. I'm hoping to record the audio version for
great.
Confidence is Overrated hopefully soon. I got to get into the studio around here and get that recorded. But yeah, both books right now are on Amazon. You can usually find me on most social. I'm on Instagram more than any other social media, but Live Yes And, Travis Thomas, Live Yes And on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty accessible. So if anyone wants to follow up or any questions or anything, there's not too many layers of access it takes to get to me.
And you can expect a reply with a lot of exclamation points.
Yes,
and emojis
and hearts. Yeah.